Hey, what's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to an all-new Season 3 of the Mindshare Podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by the Buzz Conference and Kit's Keep in Touch Systems. Make sure you connect with the Buzz Conference by visiting their website, www.thebuzzconference.com, or by following them on Instagram at The Buzz Conference to keep tabs on all the awesome events they host, including the Luxury Connect and Recreation Investment Mixer happening this week. These events are always loaded with value, so be sure to follow the Buzz Conference to stay in the know and book your free tickets. And Kits offers a fully loaded cross-channel marketing suite for the real estate industry, including tools to help you manage your business, build mindshare, and drive even more sales. You can learn more on my site, mindshare101.com, by clicking on Marketing. Now, I have to share, and I know I shared this on my last episode, but some really exciting news. As you know, we are working to get to 100 reviews on iTunes. Well, the thing is this. There are thousands of shows available to listen to in all sorts of different categories, and they only rank the top 250 shows on iTunes. Now, not only do we sit in the top 250 on a regular basis, and not only did we rank number 11 just a couple of weeks ago, but just last week, I was really and am really excited and grateful to be able to share with you that the Mindshare Podcast hit number 8 on the iTunes charts for business and marketing. I am absolutely pumped if you couldn't tell, and I just want to say thank you to you. I appreciate you seeing the value. I appreciate you enjoying the show enough to keep coming back and for helping us build Mindshare by spreading the word about the show to everybody you know. And I'm talking everybody. Now, if you haven't yet, and you would like to be a part of it, of this Mindshare 101 wave that just keeps rolling through the industry, please take 2 minutes, go to iTunes, rate the show, leave a review. It really is that easy. And let me say in advance, thank you. Today's episode is number 133. Born in the USA, but of Congolese origins, his life and aspiration continues to be marked by his relentless pursuit for socially responsible meaning in his professional and personal life. At the age of 17 years old, he fled the Democratic Republic of the Congo due to the civil unrest and had to begin his life anew in the U.S. He began his career in real estate as a newly licensed realtor with a local real estate firm in Northern Virginia in 2014, shortly after completing his business degree, and eventually managed the firm's lead generation department and later its development and growth in some of its key markets. He now serves as Vice President of Business Solutions for leading real estate companies of the world. This week on the show, I am joined by Billy Ekofo. Billy, welcome to the Mindshare Podcast.
David, great to be here. Thank you so much.
It's great to have you, my friend. I know it's been a long time coming, and I'm excited to have you here today. I'm very excited about the conversation. It's slightly different than some of the stuff that we jump into normally. I like to talk a lot of marketing, which I'm hoping I'm going to get to with you. But
Sure.
I love where we were going with even the topic of today's show and kind of reading through your bio and getting to know you over the years and kind of knowing what you stand for there. But I thought just before we even roll into that, just for anybody that maybe doesn't know you as well, can you just share a little bit more about you, your current role, what you're up to?
Yeah. So I don't know if I have more to add, but I'll just say this. I'll talk a little bit about leading real estate companies in the world. So we are a global network made of independently owned brokerages, globally. We have the primary pool of our members are based in the United States. We also have a good contingent of members in Canada, which happen to oversee the Canadian network. And we have members in key markets around the globe. And so, I serve more or less as a business consultant to my members. And so the network offers a suite of services that it makes it available to its members. And we work on a one-on-one basis for our member to make sure that it can fully utilize what we offer as services. And so it's great fun. You get to learn how independents tend to think about the business, which is at times different than how franchise view the business as well. So that there's a nice balance to that. And, each of my members approach the business differently, right? Even though they classify as independent, but they all really see the business differently, which, that's the learning that I love about it. And so multiply that by several members throughout the US and Canada, and it makes for a pretty exciting journey for me. So that's it.
You're talking to a lot of people every single day in different parts of what we'd almost say North America at this point.
Sure. I would say it varies. It's a bit seasonal. So if you think of the spring market is when everybody's trying to gear up for lots of sales happening. Mm-hmm. Although I have to say the last year and a half, the market COVID has shifted a lot of things. And so a little bit more conversation, not just about the business, also about other things of the business, right? Today's topic is apropos because you talk about finding meaning again into an industry that, sometimes, for lack of a better term, can be stale, right? So it's like, well, how do we find meaning again? It's like, well, we need to look at what the business really offers to the clientele, to the people we're serving, even to agents and brokerages as well. And among other things. So yeah, I have conversations, I do presentations, there's the consulting, it's really, everything I wanted to do in terms of career, right? It's all meshed into this role, which is amazing. So.
Oh, that's exciting. I know, I want to say last week, it was probably the week before at the way time is flying these days, but I was speaking at a conference and in the sort of pre-mixer prior, and it's all virtual. So it's a very different platform as we know now in terms of like where everybody gets together and just chit chats before everything gets started. But somebody had brought up, trying to find a way to almost streamline the processes of real estate across the board in North America. And, I started digging in and sort of probing and asking some of those questions of like, well, how would we do that? And how would we put it together? And so sure. I found it just interesting when I was kind of, when we were prepping for today to kind of look at, the whole idea of social responsibility. And I think it ties in so well. And even to what you just said about so many different people doing independence. They're independent, but they're different. And so what can we learn from one versus the other? What can we learn from different people? And then is there a way to streamline? But I guess the question I have here, like, you've got this relentless pursuit for this social responsibility, as we stated.
Yeah.
What are you learning along the way? Like, share more with us about that, because that's kind of where I want to dig into as to what you just said as well, right?
Yeah. So it's great. So I have to give a little bit of background. So
please,
when I went to business school to get my MBA, the original intent with the MBA was for me to get back into media because that was my background. So I was a TV, I worked in television. I was an assistant producer in TV. And so I wanted, my goal was, well, if I get the MBA, it will allow me to kind of climb the corporate ladder in the TV media world. Or so I thought. So MBA is 2 years. First year, I met an upperclassman. And she started talking to me about how you can leverage business, right, as a way to do societal good. And the whole idea just kind of blew my mind. Everybody thinks about business as just profit oriented, right? I like make money, move on to the next venture. But at that time, I never thought as business as, a conduit to really solve societal needs, like, to combat poverty, to bring water to places that doesn't have water, medicine, to leverage business opportunity to help people lift people out of poverty. Like none of that stuff was introduced to me before. And so when her and I started to talk about it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like we should do, this is something I would like to do. And then my primary focus was like, well, the US is sort of, it's okay, but I really wanted to look abroad, overseas, because the need for that type of approach in business is really needed in third world countries, right? So I finished my MBA and I was like, okay, this is the work I want to do, right? I want to work for international development organizations. Those of you who know the United States, so Northern Virginia, closer to Washington, D.C., and there's a lot of those organizations that have their headquarters here, or at least an extension of their services here in Northern Virginia or in Washington, D.C. So moving up here made a lot of sense if you wanted to be in that type of work. So that was the approach, right? Like my career in business was essentially, the North Star was I need to do something that allows me to leverage business and really impact the community, trying to do something good for the community. And that's what I was looking, right? And I think it has remained the North Star to this day, right? Because ultimately, there's not, I will argue, and perhaps some people will disagree, but, we'll take it from there.
That's okay. People can disagree.
Right. Yeah. But I will argue that, one of the main socially responsible industry happens to be real estate, because think of the impact agents, brokerages, and whoever have on the local community, right? And the whole appeal for me working with independents is because you get to see that every single day, right? It locally owned real estate brokerage, wherever you may be, you follow them a little bit and you find out exactly how anchored they are in the community. And that's not just, them knowing what's going on or the buzz about, who's talking, about the neighbor or whatever. No, this is them actually leveraging, turning their profits towards a local cause, right? This is them helping in a soup kitchen. This is them sponsoring a kids event. Like, they've really anchored, right? And so this is where I'm like, it couldn't be more apropos, right? Like, real estate is tied into that. So if you think one company can have that type of anchor in its community, right? And, this is why I'm proud of leading RA. Imagine now having multiple companies, right, across the world with that same locally based impact. It's tremendous, right? And so the idea that real estate is really poised to be a socially impact industry, it's not a new idea. We just need to now embrace it and say, this is who we are now, right? It's no longer just, let's make money, sell houses, whatever. But no, we have more or less a duty to be that embedded in the community, because we are the cornerstone of our communities as well. And so the relentless pursuit, I believe once you latch onto that idea, it changes the way you do the business ultimately, right? Which is, to me, that's the innovation part. It's like, no longer am I just driven by, what's the next house do we need to sell, or rankings. I'm not saying those things don't matter.
Yep.
But I think if there's no purpose behind it, then it's all for nothing, in my opinion. So,
I don't want to say I'm blown away by the answer, but I would say that I didn't see it coming, and I say that in a good way. Because I agree with you completely. I really do. I think that we in this industry have a significant leg up on many to be able to impact socially in the community, and be it through, actually helping, be it through financial assistance, be it through, getting a word out there about something because of the connections that we have and how many different walks of life we talk to on a regular basis. Right. And I think that it's a big point we bring up. So let's get tactical for a second with that then. So, for somebody listening and hoping that everybody listening truly understands. And I mean, Billy, I'll tell you, and this, again, this is not that I made this up and we know this well, and most trainers and coaches will share this stuff, but if you want to grow your brand at the community and you want to get to that point where, and there's many people that say this, that, they're at the grocery store, they're picking apples and somebody recognizes them, comes up and says hello.
Right.
If you want to get there and it's not there out of ego, it's not there out of maybe self-pride, but it's there out of the fact that you've helped enough people and now people get to recognize you. We talk about the integration within the community. We talk about becoming that go-to. What you're talking about in this drive that you've got to get this message out with, which I'd like to stand behind and completely assist you with, that is another way for people to get out and help other people. It is not just thinking the real estate side, but thinking, what can I simply do in the community? And now you're achieving really ultimately what you want, right? So again, getting tactical. So what are some things that people could do to be better in this part of their biz?
Yeah. So before we get even tactical, I think there's something to be understood here. This is not just for posture's sake, right? In other words, you can't just, go out and put a nice flashy, comment on your website and say we're, a social impact company.
No, it's got to be hard. You got to live it and breathe it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I think sometimes the actual business structure needs to reflect this. So, if you go back in a couple of years, well, not a couple of years. It's a couple of years ago.
COVID makes everything a blur.
I know. Back in 2000, so when the market crash happened, right? So we right around 2008, 2009, 2010, like that time period, the notion of social entrepreneurship, right? Like becoming an entrepreneur and coming up with a product that's, there's the pursuit of profit and there's also the pursuit of purpose behind it, right? Those kind of businesses started to gain prominence. And the reason why is because even before that, everybody was, Wall Street was sort of focused on just profit, right? There was no heart behind it. There was no conscious behind it. It was just profit oriented. And then the crash happened. And then it causes people to look at differently in the way they purchase things, right? Whether it's a good or service, or even, to some extent, who they affiliate with. Right. And that was really the driver for it. So fast forward, now you have people that are making conscious decisions with purchasing goods and services. They don't want just to purchase a good or service for the sake of it. They're literally making a choice because they know that the supply chain of where this good comes from is either green or it's environmentally friendly, or a portion of those profits goes back to help a community in, we'll say Malawi, whatever. Right?
Yep.
That's the type of consumer you have now, right? And my prediction is that it will continue to be the case as we continue to progress and as technology becomes more and more integrated into our lives. Right? You have socially conscious, affluent consumers, right, that have access to all the information. They can do all the research. They need something. They need a cause to rally up behind, beyond just the product that they're purchasing, right? So this is what we're talking about. It's no longer about just slapping a marketing logo and saying we're a socially conscious company. Like, your business and its very structure has to mirror that appeal, right? For the consumer now that's out there. So as you're building your real estate business or, whatever, any business, but in this case, since, real estate is what we do, if you're building a real estate business, think about it, right? How can you have a real estate business? And I'm not saying it's easy, right? And I want the audience to fully get what I'm saying. This is not easy to do. In order to have a pursuit of profit and purpose, one, they have to be equally rising together, right? Like, one cannot, purpose sometimes, if you're too focused on purpose, you're not building a business. If you're too focused on building a business, purpose tend to fall off right. Like, so they have to grow in tandem. And the companies that are able to achieve that, what we've learned in looking at their financial statement, they don't suffer at all. In fact, they tend to make, profits year over year, which is great, So the whole notion that you can make money, have a great service or product that you sell, and be socially conscious, those they used to be separated. Now they're beautifully integrated together. And you're not losing ground. You're not losing to competition. You're actually performing better than companies who do not think the way you do or are not structured the way you do. So that's the appeal, right?
And okay, and I'm with you there, and we're seeing a big wave behind it. I mean, there's, look to social media, look to the online content world, and I mean, there's many, and I mean, I won't even bring them up, but there's many examples around how the, society rallies behind certain causes. And when you can, be the driver of this cause, whether it's not even, and look, for everybody tuned in, we're not talking about you gotta go viral all of a sudden tomorrow. We're talking about what you can do in almost your hyper-local market to really affect change and assist in the social part of that world. And there's going to be different relevances depending on where you are in the market and where you are in the country or in the continent. But the idea is to find something to try to, create. So what, have you got an example of something maybe, Bill, or, what, if people walked away from today, maybe what would be that thing that you say, look, put on your thinking cap or go whiteboard this or chicken scratch on a piece of paper, think about this so that you can come up with that.
Yeah. So I'll give maybe this example. And this is an agent that I love and respect tremendously. Mm-hmm. It's an agent in my local market. Her name is Bobby Desai. So, I just years ago, I recruited her as a new agent. But her and I went to an exercise where it was more or less her trying to decide how to really incorporate her brand into the real estate business. And, we sat down and we talked about who she was and what she was about, right? So Bobby has a son with special needs, right? And I forget really the particular of that needs, but it's severe enough that every single year she has to take him to the hospital because his condition basically lends to if he hurts himself, he breaks the bone, and it's that type of of situation for her and her son, and her son's name is Ryan, but they're managing it pretty well. So as we were talking about it, Ryan is in a wheelchair and everything. And, she made a comment. She said, I don't want people to think that I'm just, I know I'm a mother of a special needs child, but I also want people in the business to know that I can help them sell real estate. And somewhere around those ways, she was trying to separate those two together. And this is why I was like, well, this may be risky, but why not combine those two, right? If you think about how many families have a particular situation like hers, right? If they have a child that's also in a wheelchair, how they're looking at a home is very different from what I'm looking at. So in other words, they're probably measuring some stuff in the room to make sure that if they were to put a ramp, it's actually there, right? The only agent that I know who can understand that is you, Bobby, right? And so there was this aha moment, right, that happened. And then long story short, she totally rebranded. She's now Special Agent Bobby, which I love.
Cool.
I wish I could claim credit for this. I can't because it's totally her. But what it did, it's it married her passion for being an advocate for special needs kids to the actual business. And I think some of the people who come to her to help have that understanding that Bobby doesn't just look at real estate, right? If you have a child or someone in the family that requires special, attention or needs in terms of access to a home, she's one of the few people who can actually understand it, right? So there's where the cause actually marries the business opportunity, right? I think a lot of people have causes, things that they care about, right? The business is large enough, and I say large not in terms of business opportunity, but just large enough. Real estate encompasses many things. It's large enough for you to latch onto something and say, this is going to be what defines my business. I care about this particular animal shelter. I care about this kid's soccer team. I care about this women's volleyball team. I care about this crew team, right? I care about this gym, whatever it is.
Yep.
This is where the opportunity is you can combine those two things together and it will be a beautiful marriage, right?
So what is the marriage then? Is this specifically is it branding? Is it in the slogans and the logos and the messaging? Is Bobby saying specifically, is the message, I can help you if you are in a situation like this where you need to know, certain parameters around special needs? Or is her angle, not only I can help you with that side of things, but for every dollar I make in commission, I donate X to Y kind of thing. And I'm sure that any one of those actually can fit the bill, but I guess more specific to Bobby just for a second, as a great example here, how is she doing that?
Yeah. So I think it's more number 3. Hi, my name is Bobby Desai. This is the reality of my world. And this is what I care about.
Gotcha.
That's it.
So not I'm donating here or not, I can help you specifically there. She's just going, here's who this sounds awfully similar to a conversation story we had 5 years ago, 6-7 years ago, when you said to me about the story, which I've reminded you a few times in our calls, right? About tell your story.
Yeah.
Right? Similar situation.
Life.
Yeah.
Right. She just said, this is my life. This is my reality. This is what I'm passionate about. If you want to learn more, contact me, right? Mm-hmm. And people do. And people have that on this, I think sometimes we collectively, we try to, we imagine our audience not being savvy enough to connect those dots together. And that couldn't be farther from the truth, right? They need to know that you care about something. Yeah. Let them make the connection that, obviously, David, you care about this. Therefore, it has something to, this is the way you're conducting your business and those sort of things. I can see them being there together. I want to get on this journey with you. I want to support your business because I know how important, how, personal it is to you, right? Your audience can make that leap, right? You just need to let them know that you care about something, right?
Okay. Now
the rest.
So letting them know then, would you suggest, and I'm kind of going on a limb here, but, post something on your website about, like, in your bio to share about your story, social media posts that just once in a while have zero to do with business. They just happen to do with this situation. It could be sharing advice or insights into, living with somebody who needs special needs or the physicalities of the actual house, and what would be needed for that, education around that. So it's not specific, look at me and what I do. It's talk about it. What I would, and forgive the pun, but build mind share around that particular topic so that people know that that's near and dear to you.
Yeah. Yes, to all the above. Okay. Whatever medium you believe that it's something, that you're most comfortable with, right? It's not just about being in all mediums at once. It's about identifying the medium where you have the most, you feel like you'll have the most leverage, right? So that's one way to do it. But at the core, and I can't emphasize on this enough, it's about really you disclosing why certain things matter to you, right? How is it connected to you? Why is it connected to you? What are you hoping, people connecting back to you will understand about this particular cause? That's the connection that happens. And when that happens, it's easy to translate that into people looking at this and saying, you know what, David, I'm going to do business with you because I believe that the business, I can see that you care more, for the personhood, for the people, as opposed to just making a quick buck, leveraging me, whatever. So that will be the approach.
So if this was, I'm going to go like a different end of the spectrum here and say, let's say this was just me and my dog or me and my soccer team. And I say that seriously, not jokingly, because when we say find something that you're passionate about, sure. I'm not only coaching realtors, I coach hockey, I coach baseball. And quite frankly, I am passionate about it. Quite frankly, I would very much say I do it not for the recognition of it. I do it because I truly enjoy it. I really do. Yeah. I would consider that part of me being socially responsible to be one of the guys that steps up to say, hey, as a complete volunteer, I would like to dedicate my time to help these kids do. And again, I'm not doing it for the recognition of it, but I would say that for me now, part of my, things I talk about, I'll talk about baseball, I'll talk about hockey, I'll talk about my excitement for the little guys and what they're learning and everything else. And would you suggest that, again, through what we're talking about here, how it's just part of your ecosystem, that kind of falls on the same type of line around just talk about it, just share what you care about?
Right. I will say more so than just talking about it. I think as with every story, the why is important, right? So a lot of people are in baseball. A lot of people love riding the motorcycle, right? Like a mutual friend, Bruce Johnson, rode his motorcycle all the way to South America, and he was doing it to raise money, right? But we followed it. Like most people followed his journey. Right? Like we followed, like it was incredible, right? And then you learn about it, and then you know why this was particularly important to him. And the story is so moving, right? Like without getting too emotional about it, but like it's so moving. And you're like, man, wherever you go, like let me know because I'm there with you, right? And so that's what appeals to people, right? They need that connection. Otherwise, it's just a marketing ploy. It's like, well, it's great if you donate money to the local shelter, right? Why is it that important for you to do it? And it has to be more than just, well, because it's the right thing to do. It's like, no, like, there has to be an attachment there. That's really what people should be after. It's like, what is it that I care about? Why do I care about this? Right? You identify that. In my opinion, everything else takes care of itself. The messaging, right? Like people, it becomes easier. But if you don't have that, then you're just doing things for the sake of doing it for people to notice. Well, they will notice. they might not be as connected to your cause as you would like them to be.
Right.
Right. And then that's the miss that I've seen a lot of companies do. But and sometimes it takes you really going back, in yourself and, pulling out something that most people didn't know about. Right. I don't want to spoil Bruce's story, but if you connect to Bruce and you find out exactly what happened, then it's like, I 100% get what the man got on his bike and rode all the way down to South America and back. Right. Like it's amazing. So, but the driver and the cause, it's personal to him in a way that, it's not just about raising money for an organization. It's about how the organization really impacted him and his family. Right. And that's the linchpin. And so from now on, people just know. Right. And he happens to be genuine too, which helps tremendously.
Which is important though. And that's a big part of what we're saying right now is if you're going to come across with this and you're going to live it, breathe it, and just be it's got to be genuine. Otherwise, people are going to read right through it.
Yeah. And I will say more than just genuine, there has to be a degree of vulnerability there too.
Yeah.
And I think most of the time in our industry, this is not a facade that we like to portray, right? Like we want to be the strong, we want to be the successful, we want to be the recognized, right? Like all those accolades, it doesn't really lend any room to, openness, right? And vulnerability. And I think that's the first stage.
Okay. So
and all of this that we're talking about.
Well, okay. So let me ask you this then, which would tie right into from a communication perspective for a moment. What are your thoughts around the mainstream brand building that just happens in general within our industry in terms of, the channels that people are using and then, the messages that people are putting out there? I mean, maybe some thoughts or some advice to our audience around, again, that idea around building your brand, which I think ties in well to what we're talking about here around living and breathing it.
Yeah, and brand building in itself is not wrong, right? Like, and to me, there's a difference. Well, a slight difference. 100%. Look, you can build a brand, if it's, more streamlined, commercial, whatever you want to put, whatever label you want to put on it, right? That's fine, right? It just depends on whatever you're looking to, quote unquote, sell or be recognized for, right? Some people like to be recognized for awards. So the entire brand that they built in the business is centered around them getting a bunch of awards year over year. That's their business, right? Some people like to be recognized for, the number of sales that they've done, right? So the entire brand that they build around it, it's, around the sale that they've had throughout the year. Some people like to be recognized for the amount of team members that they have on their team. So they built, right? Like all of those things to me are not, they're not wrong instinctively. If you are going to say that I need to build a brand that's based on something a lot deeper, this is where it gets, to me, this is where lies my interest. Because you have to identify now what that deeper meaning is before the logo, before the marketing channels, before everything else. And if that hasn't been identified, then essentially you're trying to attach deeper meaning to things that can be done very surfacey. And it doesn't connect, right? And the audience can see right through it. It's like, well, you say you're socially responsible. What does it mean? Well, I don't really know, but that's the buzzword right now. Okay. Right? Like you just lost me there, right? But, and that's the thing. It's like you have, anytime someone mentions social responsibility, to me, my ears always perks up because now they got my attention. It's like, okay, you said something that now evokes something. Like, what is it? It's like, well, here's the story, right? I started a business, and there's a good story. There's a good anchor there because that's what really sustained the brand long term, right? You can't deviate from the story, right? Everything else kind of, you can change the color of the logo, change the font, but the story remains the same. And that's what anchors it. So if that's not defined, if that's not anchored, everything else is just stuff.
This is well, okay. So here to that for 1 second. Then, when we talk about social response, we talk about brand building, we talk about the deeper meaning. What about the idea? And like we say, like what's your putting out there, whether it's a team or it's awards or whatever. What's our 2 cents here on promoting that you sold for over asking? What perception do we believe that that's giving to homeowners outside of our industry? And as we tie that to our branding and our social responsibility, what are we thinking about that one?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Because you have 2 sides to this. On one hand, you have a seller who's looking to sell their property for the highest and best value that the market could support, right? On one hand, you have buyers that are looking, for opportunity to own a home, right? And usually realtors are sort of in between those 2 realities, right? On one hand, you can basically, and again, it depends on your brand too. If you are saying that, look, I care for the community and I'm all about giving back and this is what we support. And then the same token, it's, everything you're putting out there right now is, profit oriented, metrics oriented. There's a disconnect, right? And I think this is what people essentially miss about the whole thing. It's like, instead of talking about the fact that the house sold for the highest and best value, you can talk about it if that's what you're looking to build out as if your brand is based upon recognition for selling real estate at the highest price possible, by all means, like that's on brand, that fits it. But a lot of people don't even have the brand figured out. They're just saying, well, I need to get attention. Therefore, I need to say stuff like this, right? Which in itself, it's not wrong. But then again, you're dealing with a very savvy public, right? Mm-hmm. If you're trying to say that, you have a community focused, business centered practice, and you're trying to marry that with the fact that everything that you talk about is, how you sold the house outrageously over asking. And that's proud moment for you, right? Like, to me, those 2 are not in sync.
They're disconnected.
Right? Like they're disconnected. And so the challenge is now, how do you go from there back to here, right? Where you're trying to reconnect with people. Your audience is already gone. I'm not saying that you're not going to get business or, but like if you were trying to have deeper conversations, people already know that, okay, this is what appeals to you. I don't know that you have even time to listen to me because I'm looking here and I see all this exceedingly, profit and sold. And, that's what, that's what you're about. And that, if that was the intent all along, well, more power to you. But if that wasn't the intent and you just got caught off because that's the wave of the moment, well, that won't last, right? At some point, maybe the market will correct itself. Then what happens? What story are you going to try to tell at that time? What anchors you as far as stories? Because now you have nothing. You know what I mean? So that's the tricky part about it. And so I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think you just have to be honest as to what story you're looking to tell, right? If the story is about helping sellers achieve the highest and best value in the market, if that is the actual brand you're after, as far as brand building, 100%, this is the story you should tell. If the story is about helping everybody achieve the home ownership, then maybe you should trick that a little bit. Instead of talking about the highest price you got, say, look, in a very difficult market, I was able to work with Realtor X from, I don't know, this brokerage there. And we were able together to bring these 2 families together. Like, what a beautiful tale, which is on brand, right? Like this is the part, and this is the nuance. And I think sometimes when we talk about brand, people tend to forget that brand building is about how consistent you are with the story you're telling, right? In other words, you have plenty of opportunities to deviate from the story because of different trends that are happening in the market. Are you going to remain consistent with the story you're trying to tell? And if you don't, this is when people automatically identify that you probably don't have a story to begin with. And maybe we shouldn't talk to you more. So
I love the way you tied those together. And I love the example. I hope everybody just took notes on that one. And if you didn't, press pause, rewind, and go back to it. But seriously, what you just brought up about the whole sold over asking, you spun it wonderfully there about bringing 2 families together and helping everybody achieve their dreams. And I think that, even if people don't use those exact words, but to read into that a little bit more and understand that there's got to be different ways to put that out there. Because look, on a very personal level, I would say I understand when you put it out there and you want to say within our realtor platform, our realtor industry, to say to other realtors, hey, look what I did. Okay, fine. If you've got a little bit of that competitiveness in you, I'm not going to fault competitiveness. That said, though, we know that homeowners don't know what we know about our industry. We know that they wonder why people make so much money in this industry off of the sale of a house. We know that that's one of the biggest reasons people ask for commission cutting. And here we are telling people, hey, look how much money I made. And I don't know that there's another industry out there that runs around going, look how much money I made. And I don't think from a social responsibility for the individual saying it and or for the industry as a whole that it's the right message to be putting it out there, because I just don't think it's responsible.
Yeah, and you hit on a couple of things. You have to go back and kind of look at the story we've been telling as an industry overall, right? Mm-hmm. Now, full disclosure, I wouldn't have been in real estate for like decades.
Yep.
I would say probably, 24. So going on
7-8 years.
Probably
now.
7 years. Yeah. So, but you pay attention and you see kind of the same narrative that happens over and over again. And the narrative is who's the top agent? I want to be top agent. With the top brokerage, this is how much money and how much sales we've done, right? There's a whole lot of story added into the success that we're trying to drive as an industry overall, right? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, like, for everything that real estate encompasses, we focus on a very narrow part of our own story, which is the sales, the awards, and that's it, right? So if you think of an entire pie, like there was just one tiny bit of that pie that makes the entire, probably 90% of our narrative as an industry. I don't know why that is the case, but it's been the constant as long as I've been in the industry, right? It's always that. And now but the pie still remains, like there's a whole lot of pie left, right? Why don't we talk about the fact that we're in an industry that can help, that can do social good, right? That's real estate is prime for that, right? And like I said earlier, think about how many businesses transact with a real estate agent, or how many touch points that real estate agents can have with other businesses. Some of them have nothing to do with real estate, but the real estate agent can still serve a purpose, either in highlighting their services or putting them in contact with the clients should they need their service, right? Like there's a massive amount of touch points we can have, and we can do so much good just to elevate societal needs together as just the real estate industry. We just never tackle that side because, as I said, I believe that the entire story has been focused on very one minute segment as to who we are. Now,
you're dropping gold here, mister. Listen, because I love this. And this is one of those moments I forgive me to cut you off, but I want to stop. I want people to pay attention to that. The pie has many different pieces to it, yet we have focused in as an industry on like one little slice. So for everybody trying to figure out how can I build my brand? And Billy already told you about getting socially responsible and find something that's important to you and talking about why it's important to you. Well, why don't we look at the entirety of the pie and ask ourselves, what are people not talking about? What could I leverage to talk about? How could I talk about this good side of stuff, this other side of things that is completely different? Because that's another way to stand out. That's another way to be building your brand.
Yeah. And, you want to know like the other side to it too. So one of my favorite real estate strategists out there, Mike Dopretti, talks about, he looks at different real estate business models and he analyzes them. So, if you have time to read some of his work, it's absolutely brilliant. But he said something recently, like he gets questions from people about, well, what do I do, with competition and my market, certain brands are coming in. I don't know how to position myself. And essentially he said, you need to compete where you're absolutely sure you can win. Right. And that's the brilliance about it. It's because when it comes to societal impact, everyone can win, right? Everyone is a winner. Who benefits from it? Every single, whatever cause, whatever, pulls your heartstrings in terms of giving back, everyone wins, right? It's not about who donated more money. It's like, here's who we're helping and here's the impact we're having as a collective, right? That's the beautiful part about it. Like, it's no longer about the recognition. It's about society doing well as a unit. Who wouldn't want that, right? I don't care where you fall in terms of politics. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, if we all come together and, so, if five families right now, we're able, as an industry, we're able to give them a home that they were not able to afford for whatever reason. And we did something, we raised the funds, and this is a campaign that we all got behind of, regardless of our company, we all came together. Like, so much things we could do. And the win is, it's not just me winning. It's me, it's you, it's agent here, it's agent there, right? It's the industry as a whole. Like, I don't know anybody that wouldn't want that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But
okay, so here. Sorry, finish that thought.
No, I'm just asking the question, why didn't we like approach this before? You know what I'm saying? Again,
that's what I wanted to ask you then. Right. And I said this to you sort of off the top just before we went live from the other conference that I was on a couple of weeks ago when this was brought up. But, with so many people licensed across North America, and we see a lot of variations about how this business should be done. I've got one particular coaching client that's working with me that always talks about, the business of good real estate, which I love it. What kind of responsibility do we have to each other in this business to do good real estate? And what do we see, Bill? What do we see as the biggest challenge to why agents are all over the map with how they practice this profession?
That's a deep one.
It's a loaded question. I got you.
Yeah. That's a good question. That's a loaded one. I will say this is Billy's opinion.
Yeah.
Right? I think collectively we forgot who we were serving. And I'm again, not too long in the industry, just observing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we made the business about ourselves as agents first, and about the customer / society second. I think if you reverse that, make the business about people first, then I honestly believe it comes back to you. So, if this, if you and me are in a transaction, it's not about me taking leverage over you, David. It's about me finding, working with you so that the people we sworn to help actually getting the help they need, right? It removes the ego, it removes the competition, it removes everything other than our sheer commitment for the client's well-being, right? That's the driver. But now, this is just one transaction, right? Mm-hmm. Look, now trying to duplicate that into several transactions happening across the country, across, the globe, right? If real estate was approached as a way for us to actually serve the needs of our clients as opposed to our needs ourselves, I don't know. Maybe the industry will be slightly different.
Okay. So I like that. First of all, you took a very difficult maybe question that goes way deeper, and I think you really did simplify it by saying, if we really do pay attention to what we're doing and together we work collectively to get there. And I think that's really what it's all about. And I think that somewhere along the way, and I'm with you on this, somewhere along the way we might have lost our direction on why and what we're doing. And in that same breath, there's sometimes where we feel, well, I'm doing what's best for my client, so I'm going to continue to do what's best for my client. And I can appreciate that from many people, from many sides of it, because you don't know who they're dealing with on the other end. That person could be somebody that is very difficult to deal with. That said, I also believe that our roles here, the shoes that we wear, the hats that we wear, is to somehow facilitate the entire thing. So how am I going to satisfy the needs of my client, take care of my client, have that fiduciary duty? How am I going to go and help the other agent work this deal? And because it's not just me and my client. There's a few parties that have to come together to make this thing work. And with that, maybe that I don't want to use the word lack of communication, but that communication channel, which is maybe not as strong or as open and sharing as it should or could be. I think that could be right there one of those aspects where we could say, hey, if everybody really focused on going, I want to make this a good transaction. I'm gonna do what I can to figure out a way to get along with the person on the other end and work and collaborate together, rather than go, all right, it's you and me. Let's do this. We're stepping in the ring. We got 3 rounds. People are going in that way, and I that's probably one of the starting points right there.
Yeah, no, I think it has to be the starting point, right? In order to elevate, to sustain long-term collective success and growth in our industry, right? Like if I come to it with an adversarial attitude, it's no longer looking for the best interest of the people we're looking to serve. It's looking for my own self-interest. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but anytime I looked out for Billy, it hasn't turned out well, right? Like,
yeah, right.
It hasn't turned out well. So, anytime where, and more or less where I put the collective before self, somehow, and this is essentially my own story, the collective has always cared for me, right? Yeah. Whether it's on the personal level, whether it's on the professional level, right? Like do the right thing for everybody involved. It always comes back to you, right? And so, that's the mind shift, right? Yeah. It's like, for an industry that's so focused on individual, how do we make it more of a collective industry, right? Like a kind of share all, we're all in this together. We all here for the benefit, not just of our client, but for the collective, right? Like, I think it changes the way you approach the business altogether. And that's, to me, that's something that it's not something that you fix and you move on. It's continuously being worked on, right? And so it's not something that happened and then it stops and then, on to the next project. No, this is something that you have to consciously do every day. Every single transactions are different. Every needs are different. But I think the end game is still, everybody should go into it, for the win, right? Whether it's a win for your client, it's a win for the other person on the other table, it's a win for the other agents, right? Like the best trend, like I love when I see comments on, on social media about agents that had just a wonderful transaction experience.
Yeah.
All of them, right? Like you have the seller agents and then the sellers, and then you have the buyer's agent and the buyer, and they were like, you get this massive, like, man, this ended, right? Like, how can we do this again? Right? Like, it was just fun working with you guys. I love it's like, I love those stories because that's what the industry should be about, right? Like the agents represent the clients. Well, the clients got to know, like it's a nice symbiosis when that happens. And so, but you don't see much of that because, again, that's not the way we're wired. So,
which is unfortunate, right? That we're not wired that way. I mean, if everybody just learned to, and I say this seriously, and you just brought this up, when you look out for Billy, it doesn't turn out the way you want. And I would say the exact same thing. When I look out for David, it doesn't turn the way we want. When I look out for everybody around me, somehow the power of reciprocity kicks in, and I'm not doing it so that people will reciprocate. Right? I'm doing it because at some point in my life, I realized that was the way to do it. And then you start to realize that there's a lot of success that comes from it. And I'm not talking personal success, but when you can help somebody else be successful, that is a very cool feeling. And I'm talking if that's the little man who's learning to skate or hit a baseball, right it up until, the client that you're helping, get to that next level in their business. That is a very cool, fulfilling feeling. And when you think about it as a bigger picture of life and take that bird's eye view and look down on your life right now and go, if it's the David show or the Billy show and that's all it is at all times, well, you might be sitting there going, hey, yeah, I kind of feel good about me, but there ain't nobody else looking. Nobody else really cares because you didn't do anything to help them.
Yeah. And this is where social responsibility, to come back full circle, right? Yep. The beauty about that type of approach to the business is that it takes the focus away from you and puts it on others, right? Which is the way the business need to be to begin with, right? And so I think it's just a fancy term to say, this is not about you. This is about others. Care for others and they will care for you, right? More clients, more people purchasing your services, more people leveraging, your counsel, bigger business, bigger deals, all of those come into play if the focus is not on self, it's on others. Like, what can I do to serve others? How can I improve the need, some of the current needs how can I help in alleviating some of the current needs of my community through the business that I'm so fortunate to practice right now. Right. And this is not just a real estate question. This is a real estate approach. This is an entire business approach, right? Financial services have embraced social responsibility, and some of them are doing quite well, right? Like the balance sheet, well, not balance sheet, but the profit statement doesn't suffer at all. Like, in fact, it keeps on climbing because society now has identified that this is not just about the money for them. This is about a bigger mission. And I'm connected to the mission. And I know where this company is going. I see the North Star. I'm making an impact, right? And as silly as it might sound, people will pay a ridiculous amount of money for Tom shoes, right? Why? Where you can get the exact same pair of shoes.
You are the second person to bring up Tom's shoes today.
Well,
that's crazy because I haven't heard that in a while, and that came up twice today.
Yeah, it's either Tom's shoes or even Warby Parker for glasses, right? Like, people will pay for those. You can get far better, even more expensive shoes somewhere else. But why are they paying for it? Because somewhere along the way, those businesses said, look, it's not just about the shoes or the glasses or whatever other things up there. It's about something bigger. It's about having this business and giving opportunity for people who are actually artisan, making those shoes and those glasses to actually earn a decent living wherever they are in the world, right? We went there, we saw the need, we know they work hard, so we decided to build a company around it. Great product, it serves the need of the community. The consumer latched onto that. It's like, I'm on a mission now, right? It's not just, it's not branding anymore. It's about, I'm wearing shoes that I know someone got paid a fair wage in order to make them. That's the connection, right? And they built, both companies are massive right now, but still they do amazing work. And I'm like, if a shoe company can do that, if a glass company can do it, real estate, like, come on, man. Like,
yeah, for real, right?
We get, right? Like we get people to literally move from one end of their economic ladder to the other, like by purchasing a home. Like, what other goods can we do as an industry? I'm like, this is why it's so, the opportunity is still there and it's massive. Yeah. But what stands in the way? 100%, I think it's just us. Because again, back to the pie, there's only one smidge of it, one portion of it that's like everybody's zeroing in on it. And we're missing the 99.99% of what the enormity of what the business could do for our communities. So
I would tell you, I think it's a byproduct of society today. I think it's a byproduct of the access to information. I think it's a byproduct of the fact that we dare I say, waste so much time aimlessly scrolling in places at times of the day that maybe we shouldn't be, because we're almost programmed out of habit these days as human nature, which then says, I don't even have the time to think about what this why would be. Then it's like, well, hold that thought. I just got to go write this off or do this deal or show that property. And then when I go there, boom, I'm guns blazing and I'm not thinking about what we were just talking about. So to me, this goes much deeper rooted around, and this is for a totally different day on a different conversation, maybe that sort of part two, but it's that idea that says, you've got to get your system structures, your business structure in place. You've got to have a really, really good structure, the bones of it all, in order to be able to sit down and go, okay, you know what? I really like what Billy was sharing today. How could I put that into place? And then what would it be that I would focus on? And then where would I find my time to be able to put the time in to focus on that and then be consistent about it? Because really what it comes back to, and a lot of this that I in my mind that keeps going by, it's like, when you tell somebody, don't throw that piece of garbage on the ground, and they're like, it's just one piece. Or, hey, pick up that one piece you saw. Well, it's just one piece, not going to make a big difference. Yeah. Or, turn off that light bulb or whatever. I can't make a difference. No, I would say we all could make a difference. And if we all just did a little bit ourselves, the world could be a different place.
I think you have to believe, right. And I think you have to believe that you can actually be an agent of change.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's what starts with it all. Like, I can make a difference. Yeah. No, I don't have the leverage that some of these, mega companies have. But whatever opportunity comes my way to make an impact, I can do that. This is where it starts. And then it just kind of builds from it, right? Like, and that's the story that ties in people together. right? It was not about looking for a way to sound appealing, right? It was genuinely believed that me having this license to operate as a real estate agent can be a greater force for good for my community. Now I can leverage the fact that I help people buy and sell real estate as a main conduit for it, but the business is so much larger than that. I can get involved with, other real estate causes, where I am. I can get involved with non-real estate causes where I am, and still make an impact, right? Like the amount of good we could do. Again, we are on own limitation, right? And I'm calling myself out too, because I know sometimes it's easier to get wrapped into the business and forget that there's a piece of the business, right, that transcends just the transaction, right? It's the connection part. It's to be able to look at people and say, you matter too, right? What are you in the business about? You matter too. And whatever you're struggling with, I'm going to leverage everything that I have in real estate to help you. Whether it succeed or not, at least let me try, right? Like that's the way you elevate the industry altogether. So,
I'm curious. I as we come to sort of the end of the, and just before I do that, I want to make a shout out here to clients of mine, Dean Michelle and Jennifer Bacon, because as you bring up the idea of getting involved in the community and making something bigger, they last year embarked on a journey to do what's called the Jump in the Lake Challenge, and the big thing around it is that you're jumping in the lake in like the middle of March, which the lake has just thawed. It is still like below freezing temperatures, whatever. The idea is like, you got to be brave to jump in this water, but they got people to raise money for it. And they donated the money to the local food bank last year. And then this year they had a goal to, double what they did. And they ended up going about 10 times financially what they did last year, because of how invested they are in the cause and how much they believe in what they're doing and what they're doing it for, and how it's specific to their community. And so even when we had a strategic conversation around how do you make it even bigger next year? How do you grow that? One thing they said to me, they said, Dave, it's very important that we stay true to our community. It's very important that what we're doing is based around the community. And it's almost like you go, what an answer. I love it, because you're really, as you said, Bill, today, you're staying true to why you're doing it. And they have had the utmost success of it. It is not, although yes, their real estate business will benefit from it, as we've talked about, their real goal, their real mission on this whole thing is to raise the money. And so people have been joining in and having a ton of fun. And it was a nice tie-in. We brought up Bobby, and I wanted to tie that in here because I thought that, they're worthy of that shout out there. But what I wanted to ask you, and was about to ask you as we sort of wrap this up, was how do you know it's been a successful day for you?
For me, that's a good question. Usually, a good day, it's when I get a member, one of the members I work with, calling or even texting it sometimes, and say, whatever you shared at our meeting or your presentation is making a difference into my agent's business. That's it. That's how you know, right? Like, because it's no longer about the broker owner who texted me. It's no longer about me. It's, we all in this together. Like, I want your agent to become the agent that I could never be. Like, I want them to be successful. But whatever I can do to help you or the brokerage on that journey, that's what I signed up for. And just to get that affirmation that this has been life-changing for me, 100%. Like, that's a good day. So, that's how you know you're on target, right? Like,
well, this is why I love to ask the question, man. I'll tell you, and I know my listeners, they're sort of tuned into this one. And I just want to say to everybody tuned in right now, put another check mark beside it, because it's same answer again. And that's a good thing. And I'll share with you where this comes from, Bill, is that for all the reading and the self-development I do, the books and the podcasts and I mean, just, other keynotes, and you listen to people and you try to learn, right? What are people doing, and how are others that are doing good things out there? How are they affecting change? And for every single person that has hit some level of success in life, in business, some notoriety of some way, For every single one of those people, every time they talk about success, they never talk about money or deals. They always talk about, and whether they use the exact word or not, it's always about how they help other people. And you said the exact same thing just now, right? Helping other people get to where they want to be, essentially. And that's the same common answer I get, which is a beautiful thing. And I say this because it's a common answer I get from successful people, from industry leaders, from people who've affected change. It's never about money. It's never about personal satisfaction. It always comes down to, how did I do something better for somebody else today?
Yeah. And look, money is a tool, right? It comes and goes. Mm-hmm. Personal impact, that lasts, right? Right? Like, that's, I think some people are driven by money, more power to them. Mm-hmm. I'm not one of those people. And, like I said, there was a time in our lives where we were scratching the bottom. And I'm not saying we're rich, but, we started at some point where it was like, having, I don't know, $20 in our bank account was a good day, right? And I have to give all the people that basically saw me and say, you have some qualities and we're willing to give you a chance, because it had it not be for these people, you and I wouldn't be talking today.
Absolutely, man. I know it.
If that happens to you, I think it's incumbent upon you to turn that around and make that opportunity available to somebody else. Like, I don't know how else to live other than this being the driving force, right? And so that's the anchor. That's the North Star that I follow, right? Like it demands that everything that I've been through, whatever success we experience, it demands that I turn that around for someone to either experience either the same or even better, because that's how we improve, right? Like, I don't want people to have my journey. I want people to have a mind-blowing journey. Like, I want real estate to do that for you, right? And if there's a speck of advice that I can give you that will literally transform.
Well, I was just going to ask you for some like, give us something. Last words here.
Oh, I don't know if this is going to be the last words.
Okay. We can go back to that.
I'm just going to say, like, if there's anything that I've learned, and this is more or less what my parents have taught me, right? Like, do not despise the days of humble beginnings, right? You need to start somewhere, right? It's going to be long, and the journey is sometimes going to be hard. Is it 100% worth it? You bet, right? Because it's not about where you ultimately end up. It's about the people you get to meet along the way, right? Each one of those people impacts you, changes you, makes you learn something new, makes you learn a new skill, right? And that's, at some point, you're going to look back and say, how did I even get where I am? Now, some people, it's very calculated, but I love the idea that you can, sort of have a trajectory, or 90% of the trajectory, but then there's like the 10%. And that's the realm of possibility for me. It's like, I need to leave that open, because this is where the magic happened. You can get prepared, you can be coached and everything, but there's one portion of it when it's like, none of this makes sense, but it just happened. And that's a beautiful thing. So, to everybody listening, do the homework, get the knowledge, but always leave room for for opportunity there, where it's not measured. Like, that's the realm. That's where possibility happens, because that completes the picture, right? And that's the way I approach it. So
I just wrote this down, and as you know, I told you before, I like to take a lot of notes on these things. But it's not about where you end up; it's about the journey that you take to get there. And I talked to Jennifer, my wife, about this a lot, and very open about it. But we all go through our wins. We all go through our losses, which losses really should be learnings. We all go through challenges. We all have good days, good moments, bad moments. And oftentimes we don't enjoy the ride. And we don't because we're living in it. We're working through it in the moment. But again, this goes back to what I said a few minutes ago about take that bird's eye view and look down right now. And I encourage everybody listening to this right now, do that. Do the bird's eye view. Really look down on your life right now and ask yourself, how are you feeling about it? Maybe you're not seeing all the good that is actually happening to you. Maybe you're not seeing that you are in the moment right now. And so this is the moment to enjoy, because, when we talk about the good old days, when we only talk about the good old days once we get past the good old days. And so sometimes it's important to really recognize, or maybe all the time it's important to recognize when you're actually living them so you can enjoy them in the moment.
Yeah.
So I will ask you, outside of what you just shared with us, and the tremendous information today, Bill, thank you. Have you got some last words of advice, in terms of just anything that you want to say to the industry that maybe, we didn't get to today? And I'm certain that we could probably do a part 2, part 3 to this one as well. Never mind just a part 2, but is there anything there just as parting words that we want to share?
No, honestly, to me, this was, a tremendous opportunity. So thank you for having me come and share. Obviously the subject is near and dear to my heart. Last but not least, I will say, I know there's a lot of independents that are out there, looking for someone to listen to them. Like, feel free to reach out too. Like, if you're an independent, you're trying to grow your business, you're just trying to, especially in Canada, as well, you have other people see you, right? We listen and we're here to help. And so feel free to get David, you have my contact information.
I was going to ask you, please share if you'd like, where can people find you, Bill?
Yeah, Facebook or Instagram at Bill Ekofo. It's really easy. And so, happy to have conversations, folks in the industry. So that's all.
Perfect. And we're just we're typing that into the comments there for everybody watching the live broadcast, and for those of you that are not, they will be in the show notes within whichever podcast platform you're listening to. But Mr. Ekofo, this has been a very, very interesting conversation. I've actually really enjoyed the conversation. I think there was so much that I was going to cover off with you today and dive into some marketing stuff, but I think we covered some of that. And I think we really did a great job of getting it what I'll say is an incredibly important message across to our industry. And so, to you, I thank you for the time. I thank you for the insights. I would love to revisit and do a continuation of this at some point. And to everybody tuned in, not only thank you for tuning in, but think about how you can take anything that you listen to and learn today from Billy, from this episode, and really try to find, and I dare I use that cliche, try to find your why, but take it deeper and find what is it that you can do to affect change? What is it that maybe needs some help? How can you get hyper-local within your community and be somebody that people look at as much more than just a realtor? And not to downplay the fact that you are a realtor, but as we've spent a lot of time talking about today, there's some incredibly important messages that can be shared out there, and we are incredibly fortunate within this real estate industry to be able to be a conduit of that information. So I want to encourage everybody to really take advantage of what you learned today. And Billy, once again, a very, very big thank you for spending your time and sharing your insights with us.
A pleasure. Thank you.
You're either listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle for Realtors. This is a 31-page ebook packed with a ton of tips and tricks for you. Plus, there's a ready-to-go 90-day social media content counter to help you build more mindshare so that you can get more market share. And if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching to help you get to your next level, get in touch with me. We'll set up a free consultation call, learn more about what you're looking to achieve, and how I will help you do just that. Also, don't forget that our push to 100 is on. So be sure to please go to iTunes, subscribe to the show, give us a big 5-star rating, and leave us a review. And if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to once again thank Virginia Munden and the Buzz Conference for sponsoring today's episode. Make sure you connect with the Buzz Conference by visiting their website, www.thebuzzconference.com, or by following them on Instagram at the Buzz Conference to keep tabs on all the awesome events they are always hosting, including the Luxury Mixer starting this week, Thursday, June 10th at 8:30 a.m. Free tickets are available on their website. I also want to thank Kids Keep in Touch Systems for sponsoring today's episode. If you haven't checked us out yet, just go to my site, mindshare101.com, and click on Marketing. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.